Just because you can plant something doesn't mean you should. If you're not going to eat it, no sense in planting it. It's the third week of January and I'm not planting anything this week. There are a lot of things I could be planting, but because I really don't eat them, like Swiss chard, kale, just don't like the taste of them, I'm not going to plant them, even though I could be growing seeds for them. So I figured this week, let's talk about what I'm planting in February. It's February and things are starting to heat up. Not literally, figuratively, since this is the dead of winter for northeastern New Jersey in zone 7A. This is when we really get socked with snow and freezing temperatures. So far, the winter's been mild, except for a couple of freezing weeks. It's been pretty warm a lot of the times. So the seed planting is going to start to heat up. And then in March, that's when it's really going to kick into gear. I have 4 types of plants that I've divided my garden up into. They're the must plants, the will plants, the nice to plant, and yeah, maybe I'll plant them. Under the must plant category, I've got 2 varieties I'm planting. Broccoli, I'm doing a Celery, and the Waltham 29. I've had pretty good success with both of them in the past. These are kind of old seeds now though, so we'll see how we're going to do, and maybe I'll need to pick up a new pack, but they should be okay. And the other one I'll be planting is parsley. I plan to grow out a lot of herbs this year, and last week I planted the chives, and so in February I'll be planting parsley. My second category, the ones I will plant, even though they're not the top priority, we're going to do Brussels sprouts. And I've got a couple of varieties there. Actually, they're the same variety, just different seed companies. They have the Long Island Improved. And cabbage. This is an early cabbage, Copenhagen. I had some good success with that last year in growing them. Brussels sprouts, it's been hit or miss for me. I think I've started them too late sometimes and haven't let them grow long enough other times. So the Brussels that I've gotten, the sprouts, have been kind of small. And I'm hoping that this year, with better planning, we'll be getting bigger sprouts. And then 2 other kinds of cabbages that I'll be growing. Golden Acre and Mammoth Red Rock. Mammoth is a misnomer. I really haven't gotten any really mammoth heads. Red cabbage tends to be a little bit smaller than the green cabbage. Maybe the mammoth is mammoth in regards to red cabbages, but like I said, they tend to be a smaller head. They've grown good, particularly the Baker Creek. I've tried other seed companies and haven't had good success. Baker Creek, I've actually had good success with the Mammoth Red Rock. In the nice to plant category, assuming I have sufficient room, and I should for these plants, is going to be cauliflower. And both of these are the Snowball Y variety. I've had pretty crappy results with cauliflower in the past. Heads don't form, they're small. So again, hopefully planting early enough, they'll get a good head start and we'll get a nice head on them. And then last is the maybe I'll plant category. These are plants that I've had, I've liked, I've eaten them, but they're not a priority for me. And that's going to be celery, both the Utah tall or the tall Utah, depending on how you like it. In the past, celery has been a little on the thin side for me. Haven't had really good stalks. Again, hoping an earlier start will do that. And that's if I want to actually plant them. And last, will be in the same family, celeriac. This is that alien-looking vegetable root crop that has a celery flavor to it. I've grown this, done pretty well with it too. It's just that I'm the only one that eats a lot of these vegetables, and celeriac is one of them. If I do grow it, I'm not going to grow a whole bunch of it. There's just no sense in having the vegetables go to waste. Like I said, I eat it, but not that often. I may or may not plant the celeriac. Celery I like, just that I don't know if I want to take my time to actually do that. So those are the 7 vegetables I'll be planting in February, maybe 7. There are, of course, others that can be planted this month. As you've noticed, there's a lot of brassicas here, and it's a good time to start them because you want to get them in the ground early. They don't do particularly well in the heat, so getting them started early, planting them out in the cool weather, because they're all fairly cold hardy crops. You should be able to get your crop before the warm weather sets in. So let's look at what we'll be planting in February. But right now, let's check in on the seeds that we've already planted and It's time to start fertilizing. We're in the third week now for the onions, and as we saw last week, they had sprouted and are growing strong. And after about 2 weeks, you want to start fertilizing them. That's because plants, after they start growing their true leaves, that's when you would like to start fertilizing them. They have all their nutrients packed into the seed itself, so they don't need any fertilizer when they first start. They have all their nutrients packed into the seed itself, but after they seedlings have developed their first set of true leaves, that's when they really need to start getting outside fertilizer. Now, if they were in the ground, they would be pulling in that fertilizer from the soil, but there's no nutrients in peat moss, so we have to supply it to them. And with onions in particular, they don't have true leaves. About 2 weeks or so is when you should start fertilizing. This is the third week. Probably should have started a little bit sooner, but it's not too bad. They're actually growing pretty good, as you'll see in a minute. So what I'm going to do is mix up some fertilizer. Onions need a lot of nitrogen. So what I like to do is I like to give them fish fertilizer. This 5-1-1 mix, the NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. It's a natural fertilizer, and as it says, it won't burn the plants. You still don't want to give too much of this. The recommended dosage is around 2 tablespoons per gallon, and if you had seedlings outside, you'd probably reduce that to about 1 tablespoon per gallon. But since we got tiny seedlings growing indoors, we're going to reduce that further down to 1/4 teaspoon per gallon. So I've got a 1 liter container here, which is equivalent to about a quart. So we're going to do 1/4 teaspoon of fertilizer per quart. So what you want to do is you want to shake this up really good. And I like to put a little water in first, so when the fertilizer hits, it's all not sitting and stuck on the bottom. Now, it would be best to use like rainwater, rain barrel water if you had some, but this being the dead of winter, not too many people going to have it. So you could take regular faucet water, let it stand for 24 hours, and that way any chlorine that may be in the water will dissipate into the air. So I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon to the container. And this stuff smells horrible, so you don't want to do this indoors. Yeah, it's kind of thick. And you don't want to get it on your hands or clothes, because you will stink. And you should have a solid cap, not one with holes in it like this. But I don't have one of them right now, so I'll just throw my finger over that. I've mixed it up. I'll fill this up with water, and then that should be dilute enough for the onions and other seedlings that will end up growing and not burn their roots. So these are the onions. As you can see, they're growing really good and they need a drink. So now's a perfect time to give them some of the fertilizer. They'll absorb that right up and it should help them grow more. So this is week 3 now with the onions. And as you can see, they're doing well. So we'll give the onions a good drink of the fertilizer. Let that sink in and absorb and give them a good boost. And now, I won't fertilize them every week, maybe every other week or so. They're small, they don't need a lot of fertilizer. They just need a touch of it to get up and running, get their growth on. So that diluted dose of fertilizer should be good for them. And as I said, about every 2 weeks, we'll give them a fertilizer drink. The Elsa Craig onions never really got going. Never got going at all. I'm just chucking them and that'll be that. They would just be on their useful date. You know, yeah, as I said, you have to replace onion seed every year. So some of the onions, the yellow Spanish onions that we've planted and are growing nicely, we'll save a couple of those onions, set them aside, and then have them grow to seed next year and be able to save them going forward. That's what we'll try to do. And we'll do that actually with all our plants. We plan to set aside a couple of plants for seed saving this year. But not the Elsa Craig, so I'll have to get a new batch of seeds next year. Here's week 2 with the chives, and they're doing quite well now. First one sprouted 8 days after planting the seeds, and then the rest popped up the very next day, 9 days later. We're off to a good start, and we'll be planting these in clumps in the garden, but they're doing well right now. Chives don't need fertilizer yet. Next week we'll start fertilizing the chives. So they just get regular water right now, and that should be, give them a good drink. You want to keep them well watered without drowning them. So far we're off to a good start. Almost all the seeds have sprouted. We actually have a few more coming up. You can probably see that right over here. We got a few more seeds sprouting. So we had close to 100% germination, if not 100%. So that's a rundown of what we'll be planting in February, and why we'll be planting it, and why we won't be planting certain other things. And also the update on our vegetables, which the growing season is underway, and that's a good feeling. We'll be back next week, because next week is when we start planting potatoes. Yes, it's the end of January, but it's potato time. Okay, thanks for watching.